Lieutenant Maya Santos had seen her share of evacuations, but nothing like this. The sky above New Eden Colony burned with an impossible darkness, a void that shouldn't exist in nature. The Centauri warship hung there like a crystalline serpent, its translucent segments pulsing with energy that defied physics itself. "Move, everyone to the teleport stations." Maya's voice carried across the panicked crowd. Her augmented command vocals, usually enough to cut through any chaos, seemed weak against the growing roar from above. The colonists streamed past her position, their faces masks of terror as reality itself began to tear. The first signs of the gravitational weapons effect were subtle, dust rising instead of falling, water droplets hanging suspended in midair. Then came the screams as the larger effects began. Buildings at the colony's edge started to stretch upward, their materials elongating like taffy before snapping apart. "Lieutenant," her comm crackled. "We've got 70% evacuated, but the gravitational distortions are affecting the teleporter arrays. 10 minutes max before total failure." Maya swore under her breath. 10 minutes. Maybe 3,000 people still to move, and physics itself was becoming their enemy. She keyed her tactical display, watching as the red zone of distorted space crept closer to her position. That's when she saw her, a young girl, no more than 12, standing perfectly still in the midst of chaos. While adults ran past her in panic, while gravity itself went mad around her, she remained unmoved. Maya's tactical display screamed warnings. The gravitational forces where the girl stood should have been enough to tear steel apart. "Hey," Maya started running toward her. "You need to move. Now." The girl turned, and Maya felt her breath catch. There was something in those eyes, a depth, an awareness that seemed impossible for a child. More impossible was what Maya's sensors were telling her. The gravitational distortions were bending around the girl, as if reality itself was respecting her personal space. "They're afraid," the girl said, her voice carrying clearly despite the chaos. "Not angry. Afraid of us." Before Maya could respond, her emergency protocols kicked in. The final evacuation trigger had been pulled. She felt the familiar tingle of teleportation beginning its work. The last thing she saw was the girl finally moving, walking calmly toward the nearest teleport station as the world twisted and broke around her. Maya materialized on the rescue ship along with the last wave of evacuees. Through the view screen, she watched New Eden die. The black hole weapon reached critical mass, and the planet began to tear itself apart. Millions of years of potential human settlement, gone in minutes. The ship's AI began cataloging survivors as they jumped to safe space. Maya found herself staring at the medical bay's entrance, waiting. Minutes later, the girl walked out, still wearing that eerily calm expression. "What's your name?" Maya asked. "Kira," the girl replied. "And you saw it too, didn't you? The way they looked at us through their weapons. They're not destroying us because they hate us. They're destroying us because of what we might become." Maya's report would eventually make its way to the United Earth government, filed under stress-induced hallucinations. But she knew what she'd seen. As the rescue ship carried them through fold space, she watched Kira close her eyes and smile slightly as the emergency lights above her flickered in patterns that matched her breathing. The Centauri's message had been broadcast across human space. "Your species is a cosmic mistake. Evolution ends here." But watching Kira, Maya wondered if evolution wasn't ending at all. Maybe it was just beginning. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her quantum probability displays with growing bewilderment. The results didn't just defy expectations. They defied possibility itself. She'd been running consciousness studies for years, measuring the quantum effects of observation on particle behavior. Animals showed predictable patterns. Human subjects, however. "Run it again," she muttered to her lab eye. Full spectrum analysis. The holographic display flickered, showing the same impossible result. While rat brains showed normal quantum observation effects, human subjects were somehow affecting probability curves before observation. It was as if their consciousness was reaching backward through time. Dr. Chen. Her lab assistant knocked softly. The Military Oversight Committee is here. With a guest. Sarah looked up to find Admiral Zhang himself in her doorway, accompanied by a woman in lieutenant's insignia and a young girl. The girl's eyes immediately locked onto Sarah's quantum displays with unsettling intensity. "Your equations are wrong," the girl said without preamble. "You're measuring for particles, but you should be measuring for waves. We're all waves." Admiral Zhang smiled thinly. "Dr. Chen, meet Kira. She's one of only 3 survivors who was directly exposed to a Centauri singularity weapon. Lieutenant Santos here filed a rather interesting report about her." Sarah's mind raced. She'd heard about New Eden, of course. Everyone had. But the official reports mentioned nothing about survivors from the gravity weapon's effective radius. "Your quantum interference patterns," Lieutenant Santos said, gesturing to the displays. "They look like what my tactical sensors recorded around Kira during the attack." Sarah felt her world shift slightly. "Kira, would you mind sitting for a few measurements?" What followed defied everything Sarah thought she knew about quantum mechanics. Kira didn't just affect quantum states, she manipulated them consciously. Under observation, she could influence electron spin, modify probability curves, even create minor gravitational lenses. "It's not just me," Kira explained while Sarah frantically recorded data. "All humans can do it. Most just don't know how to listen to the universe yet." Admiral Zhang watched the proceedings with calculated interest. "Dr. Chen, you now have level Omega clearance. There's a facility under Olympus Mons. We've been gathering others like Kira, people who've shown unusual abilities after Centauri attacks. We need someone who can understand what's happening to them." Sarah barely heard him. She was focused on her quantum displays, watching patterns emerge that suggested something impossible. Human consciousness wasn't just observing quantum states, it was entangling with them. Every human brain was potentially a quantum computer of unimaginable power. "They're afraid of us," Kira said softly, echoing words she'd spoken during the evacuation. "The Centauri. They can see the quantum fields too. They know what we're becoming." Sarah looked at her data again, then at the Admiral. "How many others?" 37 confirmed cases so far, all showing steadily increasing abilities. "And the Centauri know about this. That's why they're attacking us." Lieutenant Santos stepped forward. "Based on their patterns, they're specifically targeting colonies where these abilities have started manifesting. They're trying to stop something." Sarah thought about the implications. If human consciousness could affect quantum states, could manipulate gravity itself, we're not just fighting a war for survival, are we? We're racing against time. Evolution versus extinction. Admiral Zhang nodded grimly. "Pack your essentials, Doctor. We leave for Mars in 3 hours." And Dr. Chen, "The Centauri just destroyed their 7th colony. We're running out of time to understand what humanity is becoming." Sarah looked at Kira, who was calmly making electron probability curves dance across the quantum displays. The girl turned and smiled, her eyes holding knowledge that seemed to stretch beyond normal spacetime. "Don't worry," Kira said. "Once you learn to see the waves, you'll understand. We're not what the Centauri think we are. We're so much more." The Olympus Mons facility sprawled through the Martian bedrock like a metallic nervous system. Dr. Sarah Chen walked its corridors, passing reinforced chambers where quantum sensitives practiced their expanding abilities. In just 3 weeks, their numbers had grown to 52. James Chen, no relation to Sarah, sat cross-legged in one of the practice chambers, his eyes closed as holographic quantum fields danced around him. As a quantum physicist with synesthesia, he could literally see probability waves, describing them as tasting like colors. "The patterns are changing," he said without opening his eyes. "When we first started, human consciousness was just creating ripples. Now we're making storms." Sarah checked her instruments. The quantum fluctuations around James were stronger today, extending further into normal spacetime. In the chamber next door, Maya Santos was teaching a combat class with a twist. How to use quantum awareness in tactical situations. Feel the gravity. Maya's voice carried through the observation window. It's not just a force, it's a conversation. The Centauri weapons speak gravity's language. We need to learn to speak it better. But it was Kira who continued to break all their understanding of what was possible. In her private training room, she had learned to create stable quantum fields that could deflect physical objects. The girl who had survived a singularity weapon was teaching them all what human potential truly meant. Dr. Chen, a junior researcher, rushed up, tablet extended. You need to see this. The quantum field interactions, they're becoming coherent across multiple subjects. Sarah took the tablet, her eyes widening. The quantum patterns from different sensitives were synchronizing, creating larger, more complex fields. It wasn't just individual evolution anymore. Humanity was developing a quantum network. The facility's alert system blared suddenly. Sarah rushed to the central command room, where Admiral Zhang stood before a massive tactical display. Alpha Centauri colony was under attack. 3 Centauri dreadnoughts, Zhang reported grimly. They're deploying something new. Not just singularity weapons, they're trying to disrupt the quantum fields themselves. In the observation chamber, Kira suddenly screamed. Sarah ran to her, finding the girl curled into a fetal position, her eyes wide with terror. They're trying to cut us off, Kira gasped. They want to separate us from the quantum field completely. They're so afraid. They're willing to break reality itself to stop us. James burst into the room. She's right. The quantum readings from Alpha Centauri. The Centauri aren't just attacking the colony. They're attacking space-time itself. Sarah made a decision. Connect all the training chambers. Now, everyone links up. What followed was either desperation or inspiration. 52 quantum sensitives, connecting their consciousness through the quantum fields. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Kira opened her eyes, and everyone in the facility felt it. A window opening in reality itself. Through that quantum viewport, they saw the Centauri for the first time. Not just their ships, but their true forms. Crystalline beings of living mathematics, existing in multiple dimensions at once. And in that moment of connection, humanity learned 2 vital truths. The Centauri weren't just afraid of what humanity might become. They were afraid because they'd seen it before. Somewhere in their ancient history, another species had evolved beyond physical form. The Centauri had destroyed them, appointed themselves guardians against such evolution. But in trying to stop humanity's quantum awakening, they had instead accelerated it. Every attack, every attempt to sever humans from quantum reality, had only made the connection stronger. In the depths of Mars, humanity had just taken its first step beyond physical limitation. The real war was about to begin. The emergency alert came at 300 Mars time. Titan was under attack. 3 million colonists faced extinction as a massive Centauri dreadnought materialized in orbit, its crystalline structure already pulsing with singularity energy. All quantum sensitives to the quantum response vehicle, Sarah's voice echoed through the facility. The QRV was their first attempt at weaponizing their newfound abilities, a ship designed to amplify quantum consciousness rather than traditional weapons. Maya Santos took tactical command, her military experience melding with her new quantum awareness. James Chen managed the quantum field interfaces, while Kira simply sat in the center of the ship's consciousness chamber, her young mind already reaching out toward the enemy. They know we're coming, Kira said as the QRV approached Titan through fold space. They're curious. They want to see what we've become. The QRV emerged from fold space directly beneath the Centauri vessel. The enemy ship's crystalline surface rippled, preparing to deploy its singularity weapon. But this time, humanity wasn't helpless. Link consciousnesses, Sarah ordered, just like we practiced. 52 human minds joined together through the quantum field. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The Centauri weapon activated, twisting space-time into a lethal gravity well. But where the singularity should have formed, something else happened. Human consciousness, amplified and unified, reached into the quantum fabric of space. The gravitational distortion wavered, caught between Centauri technology and human will. Then, impossibly, it began to reverse. "We're not just stopping it," James reported, his voice filled with wonder. "We're learning its structure. The quantum patterns, we can replicate them." The Centauri ship reacted, its crystalline surface flashing with complex patterns. That's when the attack hit them. Not physical, but mental. A direct quantum communication, filled with images and concepts that human minds were never meant to process. 3 of the sensitives collapsed instantly, their minds overwhelmed. But Kira stood up, her small frame somehow containing the vast alien consciousness attempting to overwhelm them. "I see you," she said, both aloud and through the quantum field. "I see what you did to the others, the ones who came before us." Images flooded the shared consciousness. Another species, eons ago, beginning to transcend physical form. The Centauri's response, a genocide justified as maintaining cosmic order. The weight of 1 billion deaths pressed against their minds. Maya's tactical training kicked in. "They're trying to distract us. The weapon's still active." Sarah reached out through the quantum link, steadying the faltering minds around her. "Focus. We know who we are. We know what we're becoming. Push back." Human consciousness surged through the quantum fields. The Centauri weapon didn't just fail. It imploded, collapsing back into its emitters. The crystalline ship shuddered, its surface patterns becoming erratic. Then came the cost. 3 team members slipped into comas, their minds burned out by the alien contact. But they had achieved something unprecedented. Humanity's first victory against the Centauri. The alien ship retreated, jumping to fold space with its weapons destroyed. On the QRV's bridge, Sarah helped Kira stand. The girl was shaking, but her eyes were clear. "They're calling their whole fleet," Kira whispered. "What we just did, it wasn't supposed to be possible. We're not just learning to use quantum fields, we're changing them. Rewriting the rules of reality itself." Sarah looked at the medical team tending to their comatose colleagues. Victory had come at a price, but they had proven something vital. Humanity could fight back. More than that, they could win. But the images from the Centauri consciousness haunted them all. The fate of that ancient species served as both warning and promise. Humanity stood on the edge of an evolutionary leap that terrified their enemies. The question was, could they complete that leap before the Centauri brought their full might to bear? The war for humanity's future had truly begun. The discovery happened by accident. In the Martian facility's recreational area, Sarah noticed a group of children playing an impossible game. They were pushing quantum probability fields back and forth like a ball. None of them had undergone quantum sensitivity training. "It's spreading," James said, his synesthetic vision tracking the quantum fluctuations. Being around active sensitives is triggering latent abilities in others, especially children. Sarah's instruments confirmed it. The quantum resonance of trained sensitives was somehow activating similar potential in untrained humans, like a quantum chain reaction of consciousness evolution. "Dr. Chen." Maya's voice crackled over the comm. "Emergency in training room 3. You need to see this." Sarah arrived to find Kira surrounded by a group of children. They stood in a perfect circle, their minds linked through the quantum field. But what stunned Sarah wasn't their synchronization. It was what they were watching. Through a quantum viewport, they observed a Centauri fleet gathering, not in the present, but hours into the future. "They're coming," Kira said calmly. "All of them. They've realized what's happening to us. This is their response." Admiral Zhang called an emergency meeting. The tactical displays showed the largest Centauri fleet ever assembled, heading straight for the Sol system. But this time, they weren't just bringing singularity weapons. Quantum disruption devices, James explained, studying the future vision data. "They're planning to attack our connection to the quantum fields themselves. cut us off from our evolution. Sarah looked at the gathered sensitives, both trained and emerging. They're too late. The change is accelerating. Every attack they've launched has only made us stronger, spread our abilities further. The first wave of the Centauri assault struck Mars' orbital defenses, but humanity was ready. As alien weapons twisted space-time, human consciousness pushed back. Children who days ago were playing quantum catch were now instinctively stabilizing reality around their homes. In orbit, the QRV led a counterattack. Maya's tactical experience merged with new quantum abilities allowed her to predict and counter Centauri movements before they happened. The crystalline ships found their weapons reflected, their strategies anticipated. But the Centauri had numbers on their side. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The quantum disruption weapons began to take their toll, creating dead zones where human consciousness couldn't touch the quantum fields. That's when Kira and her young friends changed the game again. The disruption isn't blocking us, she explained as Sarah's instruments tracked impossible readings. It's showing us how to go deeper. The Centauri are trying to cut us off from quantum space, but they're actually teaching us how to fully enter it. The children linked minds again, but this time something was different. Their consciousness didn't just touch the quantum fields, it began to reshape them. The Centauri disruption weapons didn't just fail, they reversed, turning the aliens' own quantum isolation back against them. Sarah watched in awe as humanity's youngest generation demonstrated its true potential. They weren't just fighting back, they were transcending the very rules of engagement. You see it now? Kira asked, her eyes reflecting quantum possibilities. Why they're so afraid? We're not just learning to use the quantum field, we're becoming part of it, and we're changing it just by existing. The battle for Mars turned into humanity's first major victory. But as Sarah studied the readings from the children's quantum manipulation, she realized this was more than a military triumph. They had just witnessed the next phase of human evolution, emerging under the pressure of survival itself. The Centauri's worst fears were coming true. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. It was becoming something new, something that could rewrite the fundamental laws of reality. The real question was, what would humanity become when this transformation was complete? James Chen woke from his coma speaking in quantum equations. His consciousness, stretched across space-time by the Centauri psychic attack, had touched something fundamental, a force that existed in the spaces between reality itself. It's not just about consciousness, he explained, his hands tracing mathematical symbols in the air that Sarah's instruments registered as actual quantum fluctuations. We're not just observing quantum fields, we're becoming quantum fields that can observe themselves. The revelation came as the Centauri launched their biggest assault yet on Mars. But this time, something was different. The human defenders weren't just individuals using quantum abilities, they were linking together into something unprecedented. A quantum neural network, Sarah breathed, watching her displays, but made of human consciousness instead of technology. The Martian quantum sensitives, led by Kira's group of children, had begun synchronizing their abilities automatically, each mind connected to others through quantum entanglement, creating a web of consciousness that spanned the entire defense grid. That's when Maya made the critical discovery. During a particularly intense exchange with a Centauri dreadnought, she felt her consciousness touch the alien minds directly. What she found changed everything. They're not just afraid of what we might become, she reported in the emergency council. They're afraid because they recognize it. Their ancestors. They weren't always crystalline beings. They chose that form to stop their own evolution. To stay fixed, unchanging. The Centauri response was immediate and devastating. Their ships combined their quantum disruption weapons into a single massive pulse designed to sever Mars from quantum space entirely. But they didn't understand what humanity had become. As the pulse approached, Kira stood in the center of the quantum defense chamber. Around her, 30 children joined hands. Above them, the adult sensitives formed an outer circle. As the Centauri weapon struck, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Don't fight it, Kira said, her voice carrying through the quantum network. Become it. The human quantum network didn't try to block the Centauri pulse. Instead, it absorbed it, transformed it, and used its own energy to catalyze something the aliens had thought impossible: controlled quantum evolution. James's equation suddenly made perfect sense. Human consciousness wasn't just interacting with quantum fields, it was the universe's way of allowing quantum fields to become conscious. Every Centauri attack had been forcing humanity to adapt, to evolve, to become what reality itself needed them to be. The defensive network around Mars didn't just save the planet. It transformed every human within its range. Consciousness expanded, quantum abilities deepened, and the barrier between mind and reality grew thinner. Sarah's instruments recorded the impossible: human brain patterns existing simultaneously in normal space and quantum space. They weren't just using quantum fields. They were becoming hybrid beings that existed in multiple layers of reality at once. The Centauri fleet retreated, but not before broadcasting a message that everyone in the quantum network received. You don't understand what you're becoming. The ones before you, their evolution destroyed entire galaxies. But Kira, standing in her circle of transformed children, smiled. No, she sent back through the quantum field. You don't understand. We're not becoming what came before. We're becoming what comes next. Evolution doesn't repeat, it answers. As the aliens fled, Sarah looked at her readings with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Humanity hadn't just survived this battle. They had transcended it. The quantum network was spreading, consciousness was evolving, and reality itself was starting to respond to human thought. The Centauri would return, she knew, but they would face a humanity that was no longer just a physical species learning to use quantum abilities. They would face a species that was becoming a bridge between matter and consciousness itself. The real question was, what would humanity become when that transformation was complete? The quantum network exploded across human space like a conscious supernova. What started in the Mars facility now connected every human colony, every outpost, every ship. Distance meant nothing to quantum-entangled minds. Sarah stood in her lab, watching the transformation unfold through her instruments. Ordinary humans were manifesting abilities spontaneously, as if some evolutionary threshold had been crossed. The universe itself seemed to be responding to humanity's leap forward. It's like a cascade effect, James explained, his consciousness simultaneously present in labs across 3 star systems. Each human mind that joins the network strengthens it exponentially. We're not just linked. We're becoming a new form of space-time. Maya's tactical networks reported Centauri fleet movements that defied belief. Their entire civilization was mobilizing, abandoning ancient outposts, gathering for what could only be a final assault. They're afraid we'll spread, Kira said, her young mind now one of the strongest nodes in the quantum network. The species they destroyed before, they were confined to one galaxy. But we're different. We're not just transcending physical form, we're transcending space itself. The Centauri's desperate transmissions flooded human space. Your evolution must be stopped. The universe cannot survive another quantum ascension. But through the quantum network, humanity had glimpsed deeper truths. The universe wasn't threatened by consciousness evolution. It was designed for it. Each human mind that transcended physical limitations created new connections in the cosmic quantum field, expanding reality itself. That's what they never understood, Sarah realized, watching quantum probability curves rewrite themselves around evolved human minds. Evolution isn't just about survival. It's about the universe becoming aware of itself. The Centauri launched their final gambit, a massive quantum tunneling device designed to isolate the entire Sol system from the rest of spacetime. They would lock humanity in a pocket universe rather than risk their expansion. But they had waited too long. As the device activated, every human linked to the quantum network felt it. Billions of minds turned their attention to the incoming wave of quantum isolation. This time, they didn't just resist. They transcended. Don't block it. Kira's voice echoed through the collective consciousness. transform it, like we did before, but all of us together. Human minds reached across light years, their quantum-entangled consciousness reshaping the very fabric of reality. The Centauri weapon didn't fail. It catalyzed exactly what they had feared most. Humanity's final evolutionary leap began. Sarah watched through transformed senses as human consciousness expanded beyond physical form. Not by abandoning matter, but by learning to exist in all layers of reality simultaneously. The quantum network became a true collective consciousness, but one that enhanced individuality rather than erasing it. Maya, her tactical mind now processing quantum probabilities, saw the pattern first. They're not just gathering to attack us. They're running from what we represent. The possibility that evolution doesn't end, that consciousness can keep growing, keep transforming, forever. The Centauri fleet approached Earth, their crystalline ships glowing with the combined power of their entire civilization. But they faced a humanity that had moved beyond the need for ships, beyond the limitations of physical combat. James's quantum equations, now understood by every linked mind, showed the truth. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were becoming the universe's answer to entropy itself. Not through technology, but through the evolution of consciousness. As the final battle approached, Sarah looked at her instruments one last time before joining the collective consciousness fully. The readings showed what the Centauri feared most. Human quantum evolution wasn't stopping. It was accelerating. Ready? Kira asked through the network, her consciousness touching every human mind simultaneously. The response came from billions of transformed voices. Ready. The universe held its breath as two versions of evolution prepared to clash, one that sought to freeze progress, and one that dared to transcend every limitation. The true test of humanity's transformation was about to begin. The battle for Earth began not with weapons, but with a choice. The Centauri fleet, vast beyond imagination, surrounded humanity's homeworld. Their crystalline ships formed a perfect sphere, each vessel linked in a network that mirrored humanity's quantum consciousness. "They're giving us a chance to surrender," Maya communicated through the quantum field, "to accept their version of evolution. Controlled, contained, crystallized." Sarah, her consciousness now existing simultaneously across multiple quantum states, perceived the deeper truth. The Centauri weren't just offering terms, they were revealing their own fear of unlimited potential. Through the quantum network, every human felt the moment Kira stepped forward as humanity's voice. The girl who had first shown them what they could become now stood at the threshold of their species' transformation. "We understand your fear," she projected, her thoughts reaching every Centauri mind. "We've seen what happened before. But we're not them. We're not choosing between physical form and transcendence. We're becoming both." The Centauri response came as a surge of quantum energy that would have torn the planet apart in the early days of the war. But humanity had evolved beyond such limitations. Billions of linked minds reached out, not to deflect the attack, but to transform it. James's quantum equations, now instinctively understood by every human consciousness, showed the way. Don't fight the energy. Become it. Let it catalyze our final step. What happened next defied description in purely physical terms. Human consciousness, linked through quantum fields that span space-time itself, didn't just absorb the Centauri attack. They used it as a lens to focus their own evolution. The transformation rippled through the quantum network. Humans didn't abandon their physical forms. They transcended the boundary between matter and energy, becoming beings that could shift between states at will. Each consciousness remained unique, individual, but connected to a greater whole that expanded the very definition of reality. Sarah watched through senses that no longer needed instruments as quantum probability curves rewrote themselves around evolved human minds. They weren't just observing quantum fields anymore. They were becoming quantum fields that could observe themselves. The Centauri fleet prepared for their final assault, their ships combining into a vast crystalline lattice designed to sever humanity's quantum connections permanently. but they faced a species that had moved beyond the need for defense. Kira, her consciousness now a bridge between physical space and quantum reality, made humanity's choice. We offer you the same chance you gave us. Not surrender, transcendence. Evolution doesn't have to end. It doesn't have to be contained. It can continue, endless, beautiful, free. Through the quantum network, humanity extended not weapons, but understanding. They showed the Centauri what they had become, not the destroyers of galaxies they had feared, but the awakeners of new possibility. For a moment that stretched across quantum eternities, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, impossibly, the crystalline lattice began to change. First one ship, then dozens, then thousands began to pulse with new quantum signatures. They're choosing to evolve, James announced through the network. They're remembering what they were before they chose to freeze their own development. The transformation spread through the Centauri fleet like a wave of awakening. Their crystalline forms didn't shatter. They transformed, becoming interfaces between matter and consciousness just as humanity had. Sarah, Maya, James, and Kira stood together in both physical and quantum space as two civilizations began learning from each other. The Centauri shared their ancient knowledge, while humanity showed them how to transcend their self-imposed limitations. This is what evolution meant all along, Kira said, her voice carrying through all layers of reality. Not the destruction of what comes before, but the endless expansion of what can be. The war ended not with destruction, but with transcendence. Humanity had not just survived, they had shown the universe a new path. Consciousness could evolve forever, each step bringing new understanding, new potential, new ways of being. As Earth's sun rose on the first day of humanity's new existence, Sarah looked toward the stars with both physical and quantum senses. They didn't twinkle anymore. They pulsed with possibility, waiting to be explored by beings who had finally grown into their true potential. The limit had not been surpassed. It had been transformed into a beginning.